question is, who are you and can you give a brief outline of what the challenge is?
We are the team, the Big Oardeal. We're a team of 4 men who are going to row the Atlantic starting on 12th of December. It's a 3,000-mile non-stop row from Gomera in the Canary Islands to Antigua. We'll be rowing for either 3 hours on and 1 hour off, or 2 hours on and 2 hours off for that entire duration. And we expect it to take somewhere between 35 and 40 days.
Are you very experienced with rowing?
We've never rowed before. We started rowing in end of February this year, and that was one of the reasons we came along, and Cardiff Met and Di and the team have kindly helped us prepare for the challenge.
How do you think Cardiff Met have supported this?
They've been incredible. They did initial assessments in terms of our abilities. They then considered the challenge that we're about to undertake and then helped devise programs to enable us to develop from being fairly low in both skill and physical ability to being at the right point for us to start 11 months later. So they've been supporting us fully over the last 11 months.
Yeah, just to give you a rundown, I'm Di Watson, head of strength conditioning. I'm doing absolutely no rowing whatsoever. I'm glad to say. We did get a chance to have a go on the boat. A few weeks ago, and that only convinced me it was it was a really, really good idea that we're not doing any ropes. That was really, really difficult. We were only on the tap, and that was difficult. And as soon as you start rocking the boat or a few waves start happening, it starts to become much, much more difficult. And I know, chatting to John, just how difficult it's going to be out there. You know, when it's pitch black at night and the 20-foot waves, and I think it's a tough challenge for these guys.
Have Cardiff Met done anything like this before?
We've supported a number of external parties, but nothing quite like this, nothing on this scale, and I don't think anything is quite as challenging as this. When you consider the longevity of the actual program, and the fact that it's 3 hours on, 3 hours off for between 36 and 40 days, depending on how it goes, I guess.
Well, it varies, doesn't it? So in an ideal world, we'll be 2 hours on and 2 hours off. But if we don't manage 2 hours on and 2 hours off, we're 3 hours on and 1 hour off. And that will go on for 40 days at least, or around about the 40-day mark, we think. And the off periods aren't really off periods. So if you think that every time you finish your row, you've consumed you've burnt about 1,400 calories. So you've got to put that food back inside you. And then once you've done that, you've also got to clean yourself. You're covered in salt water. Salt water is really abrasive, so it causes cuts and lesions on your body. And therefore you've got to get that salt water off you all the time. Then on top of that, then obviously kind of that physical exertion means that you've got to try and do some form of stretching. And then your equipment, so you've got to look after your equipment each time you stop. So although you might have a 2-hour rest period, that 2-hour rest period is eaten up with probably 30 minutes of administration before you actually get the chance to kind of look after yourself in terms of actually getting some sleep or proper downtime.
What's your personal and team's goal for the challenge?
It's an interesting one because it's a race. It's fascinating. So we've spent quite a lot of time thinking to ourselves, what do we want out of this? What do we want to achieve? Now, we obviously want to try and get to the other side as quickly as we can, but we've actually made the most important 2 components to be arriving on the other side, obviously safely, because as we row across the Atlantic, we're on our own. So there's no boats supporting us as we go across. And if there's an accident or we get flipped or we end up in the sea, it could be catastrophic. And therefore getting to the other side safely is our number 1 target. The second part is actually want to get to the other side as friends still, as a team. If you think that we're going to be living in a space that's smaller than this, and we're going to be in that space for 40 days, we're going to be tired, we're going to be cranky, we're going to find things that frustrate us about each other. We've got to get to the other side as mates still, and that's really, really important. And then the third part then becomes the race itself. And we think that by getting the first 2 right, then hopefully that will help us on the third.
What's the main reason why you signed up for this?
Alcohol. So we decided to do it about 5 or 6 years ago originally, after a few drinks, and then we put it on the shelf for a few years because I'd recently started a business, and then about 2 years ago we kind of said, right, let's give it a go, and there's a number of reasons, and we've each got different reasons why. So for me, I want to see how I cope in that extreme environment. I want to see how mentally and physically I kind of get through it. But also I want to see what that isolation is like. When you're 1,500 miles from the nearest piece of land, there's nothing around you. You've got beautiful dark night skies with stars everywhere. And so just that uniqueness of the environment, I think, will be incredible. So there's some of the reasons. Then on top of that, we've been trying to raise money for charity, and we're aiming to raise £100,000 for 4 worthwhile charities. So not only are we getting something personally out of doing the challenge, but hoping that we can enhance other people's lives outside.
What difference has being involved with the various departments at Cardiff Met made to your training?
It's been huge. We're all quite naive about what we needed to do. I think Cardiff Met were great at kind of bringing the reality of the challenge and the physical / mental side of things into the kind of forefront of our head. We'd all done things before, but nothing of this duration. So working out zones for training in, working out the different muscle groups that we need to use and the different ways they need to be kind of developed over the last 9 months has meant that we're arriving at that start point in the best place. On top of that, it's also that technique piece. I mean, 3 of us are in our late 40s, one of the team's in their mid-30s, and so it's understanding where everyone is and what each one can push themselves to. And so having done the testing with Mike Hughes and his guys at physiology, to doing the weights and strength and conditioning with Di, and then chatting to the sports psychologists and the nutrition guys up here at Cardiff Met, everyone has added a different layer to the whole development, which has meant that actually it's been really good for us in terms of being prepared for what we're about to do. And that's helped with our mental resilience then, because we feel much stronger collectively.
Yeah, I think it's give a shout out to Hugh Wiltshire, who initially kind of pulled this team together, and Mike Hughes there in the physiology department. I mean, if you look at our work in the strength conditioning department, what we couldn't replicate is what's going on the sea and in the boat, just because of the longevity of every session that you do. But what we kind of looked at is how can we strengthen those body parts to try and get these guys in a position where they don't break down. So injury prevention and longevity and that robustness to just keep going day after day for this period of time is really what our remit was, and that's how we put the programs together. And I've got to give credit to the guys as well, because it's one thing writing the program, it's another thing getting the program done. And I know John's been absolutely spot on. And something he hasn't mentioned is the fact that he's had a few operations and a few bumps in the road along the journey to this, which you could probably kind of expand on now if you want to give them an idea.
So the training hasn't been a smooth course since January. So in May, I had to have a lump removed from my hand, which prevented training for a few weeks. In July, I had a new knee put in, which meant that I had to basically rehab that new knee. Gave myself 2 months to be back on the boat, and then I had another small operation then in October, and so there's been a number of little stallers along the way that have proved a challenge. And I was just saying to Di that a couple of weeks ago I picked up COVID, and although it wasn't bad in real terms, I was still working and doing other bits, but I was forced to stay at home to do it. And just then you start kind of questioning whether you're in shape to do it when you keep getting these little knockbacks. But actually the last couple of weeks has been really good, and just can't wait to get on that boat and start. So and that confidence has come from all the elements that have come together to enable us to achieve that. And Cardiff Met, Di and his team and the strength and conditioning, Mike and the physiology, Hugh putting the whole thing together, it's just kind of, we think we've been very lucky in the support that we've had.